Hi, Marcus Ruiz Evans with Yes, California. This is a somber video. I'd like to start with a prepared speech. My fellow brothers and sisters of California, I come to you in a somber moment in history. Recent events around the United States have spiraled out of control. America today is burning. We continue to watch the situation in Minneapolis as Californians unfold, knowing that it is yet another case of an all too real problem in the United States. There is a major lack of justice for the basic citizenry who choose to call themselves American. It is clear Americans can no longer count on government from the federal level down to their local and state level for accountability in America. And the country seems to be melting down as this reality is now on display. His name was George Floyd, and he was executed by American security forces publicly in front of members of his community, live on video, in a manner in which they could do nothing to stop it and just had to watch a member of their community executed in front of them. He's not alone. His name was Eric Garner, and he too died the same way in a separate American city. The crimes that George Floyd and Mr. Garner were doing? Well, one was selling counterfeit checks or cash, and the other was selling cigarettes. And for that, they were executed. That may sound harsh, but Dr. Cornel West said this yesterday. Black Lives Matter emerged under a black president, black attorney general, a black Homeland Security director, and they couldn't deliver. He's talking about the fact that racism in America existed during 2 terms of Obama, and they couldn't address this. In fact, we know that the president of the Police Officers Union in Minneapolis was known in 2007 as having a white supremacy patch. That was before Obama's term. He had 2 terms, never could fix it. I don't blame him, but I think it proves that if he couldn't fix it, and that's the most competent president America's seen in a long time, it can't be fixed, which means America's broken and isn't going to be repaired. And that's essentially what Dr. West just said. He's not alone. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, also said this about Minneapolis. I welcome the fact that the federal authorities have announced that an investigation will be prioritized. But in too many cases, such investigations have led to killings being deemed justified. That's the smartest African American person in the US, possibly in the Western Hemisphere or world, and the official expert on human rights for the UN saying the American justice system is broken and does not deliver results for its citizenry. Essentially total failure. In fact, Cornel West, in the article where he made that statement, referred to America as a failed nation. And this is the point. It's key. And it's very obvious that America is failing today. The justice system, services to the citizenry cannot be improved. It's effectively the police are terrorizing local communities like in a third world country. And America, even under competent leadership, can't seem to fix that, even with a decade to work on it. What's interesting is that this month is May. We're going into June. And people are talking about America fails. Earlier this month and going into April, people were talking about how America's failing because of the epidemic with coronavirus. In fact, on April 14th, the Young Turks, April 22nd, Steve Lopez, May 5th, Dan Walters, April 27th, Thom Elias. All major columnists and reporters who cover California government and politics for decades said maybe California should secede because America literally looks like a failed nation. So you have the coronavirus epidemic going on. America looks like it's failing, time to leave. And then we go right into another event. America looks like it's failing. And so my question to you in California is, how many times do you need to watch this? How many types of failures do you need to see? People being executed in the streets, the police effectively acting as executioners and getting away with it. This goes on for decades to the point that cities get burned to the ground. You cannot have basic direction in a pandemic on how to shut down the economy or any sort of coordinated response. These are signs of a failed nation. And so today, yes, California is officially declaring America is a failed state, and we need to declare as Californians provisional independence. Provisional independence means that, no, we're not just going to become a nation in 24 hours, but things are so bad, we consciously need to begin to think of ourselves as quickly moving to a nation. Provisional independence. We're working on independence. We're going to keep developing it as we go along, but we're effectively declaring that we're heading on that road right now. That may seem extreme, but again, how many more failures do you need to see? Now, in order to do that, we suggest that you follow what Dan Walters said when he talked about looking into CalExit. It raises, not for the first time, the question of whether California could or should go it alone. That's a key point. If you want to become a nation, it's a huge task. Lots of moving pieces, lots of data and details. So what you want to do is have a commission to study that. And in fact, we know exactly how to do that. In 2007, there was a commission on Scottish devolution, also called Devo 2.0, Devo Max, the Commission Fine Via Hlade Na H Alba, that's how they say it in Scottish, or the Commission on Scottish Devolution in 2007. It started, it was declared December 2007. They started in April, effectively May 2008. So basically they started December 2007 and they finished up May 1st, 2008. No, I'm sorry. They started April 2008. They finished December 2008, an 8-month time frame. And they were able to start the investigation within 2 months of declaring it. So they declared the investigation. They actually started the investigation in 2 months. In 8 months, they had the whole thing wrapped up. It's basically a congressional hearing. You have experts come in, they give their testimony on whatever expert issue they're supposed to be looking at. How would California financially survive independently? How would California manage the roads? How would California handle water? You have experts from around the planet, America, California, come in, testify how California could do those things. You also have California government officials testify in their opinion how hard it would be to declare independence and gain independence. And basically you put that all together in a report that says, if you were going to secede, here's all the things that you'd have to do. If you want to have your own power grid, you'd have to do this and call that person and establish this, and it would probably cost that much. So you put together a report of all the steps that would happen. Scotland did this in 2007, and it was enormously successful. It told them how to devolve further. Now, that report was attacked in the press, and other people said it wasn't that great. But the fact is that after Scotland had that report, it only pushed for more powers being taken from the UK to Scotland. So the moment they had an official report saying how you become more independent, for the next 10 years, the Scots never stopped talking about that. That report was criticized, but it worked, and they kept it, and it was a guidance for them and a moral inspiration for the next decade. They were able to talk about real things on how to actually secede. They were the smartest proposals anyone could put forward, and no one can criticize them because they did their homework and had all these experts come out and talk. So California could do that. And fortunately, yes, California already provided the legal language to start this here in California in 2015. We called it a New Hope after the Star Wars. But the California government called it the Advisory Group to Consider California Autonomy from the United States that would, quotes, create a panel of government officials and private experts to explore establishing California's autonomy from the United States. We filed that in February 20th, 2015. It was approved by the California Attorney General April 2015. So the California General already approved legal language to basically start this commission. And they already gave a cost estimate. And they already verified that the way that Yes California created a outline of how to create this commission in the initiative that we filed at that time is effectively good guidance on how to do this. So if you're a Californian, politician, Governor Newsom, expert, there's already a path to do this. We already created the legal language. It already walks you through how to do the whole thing. It was already approved by the California Attorney General. It is effectively legal to go forward. Just look it up. Advisory Group to Consider California Autonomy from the United States, April 2015. If Governor Newsom implemented that panel, we could have our own Scottish devolution panel here now. Now, while he's looking into that, I would suggest, because it takes time to get paperwork moving, Governor Newsom or someone in California, while you're getting everybody in California to agree that you need to start the Blue Ribbon panel on secession. By the way, California does Blue Ribbon panels all the time. We recently did one on marijuana under Governor Newsom, and we did one under autism, and I think they also did one on nail salons. It's basically a big investigation. It's something California does all the time. It's just California's never done this on secession. But they have a working model from a respectable institution, the Scottish government, on how to go about this. We took that and we already filed the language. You can literally grab that and move. In the meantime, we suggest the governor start getting a committee together so that when you do have approval to start the actual Blue Ribbon panel, you're ready to go. So instead of thinking, who are we going to have on the panel? What issues will we talk about? How long should it be? You get a group of experts who talked about CalExit in the background telling you, Governor Newsom, how to do all those things. So that when you get approval to launch the panel, you already have all those nitpicking issues already worked out. It's going to be this many people. Here's all their names. Here's the best experts. Here's the issues they'll handle. 24 hours after approval of that panel, I know exactly how to do it. Why? Because I convened a study group already right now. You can do that right now. Nothing's going to stop you. And in addition to telling you how to do it and providing the language to move forward, we have a list of all of the experts who've ever talked about CalExit. Now, these are not, Now, these are not people who said CalExit's tough, it's going to be hard, or it's improbable. These are people who maybe criticized the idea, but seem to actually think about it. There was a lot of professors who came up and said, could never happen, you'll need an amendment, and that's all they said. Or Americans and Californians are better together. That's not a real analysis. That's not you actually taking a look. Now, you could criticize the idea, but it needs to be a hard look into it. So this is a list of people in California and around the world who are experts, government officials, politicians, professors, media relations, communications experts who've already taken a stance on how they think about CalExit. So you could reach out to these people and say, hey, you're an expert. Would you like to be on the panel on CalExit? And they can't say, I don't know what you're talking about. You publicly opened up your mouth and talked about this idea before. So you are already publicly tied to this idea and already gave an opinion. Therefore, it's proper to reach out to you and ask for you to be on an official panel. We have about 30 reporters and analysts, about 10 politicians, one example 2010 symposium, and one professor who's already looking into this right now. Right off the bat, I would tell you, look at Joe Matthews. He held a 2010 forum called Could California Go It Alone on Its Own? Part of Zocalo Public Square. That's Joe Matthews. He already did that symposium. So he already looked at this issue. Now, it was small, but he did it. He's famous, and he could get people together. He would be a good person to talk to about getting this Blue Ribbon panel investigated. The other person to talk to would be someone who's actually doing the most investigation into California seceding, or how to operate independently from the federal government, and that's Humboldt University professor Allison Holmes. I would suggest reaching out to her because she's interviewed the most amount of people about the topic of how you would go independent. Those two people alone should start putting you in the right direction to getting this going. But here's a bunch of names of experts that you could call on to get the panel fleshed out and figure out how to go about doing it. And all these people can't act like they don't know what you're talking about because they talked about CalExit. So first, Mort Rosenblum, May 2019. He's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's a reporter with decades of relations. May 2019, he talked about Calexit. Julie McKeenan started a website for California news as if California was a nation called California One. She is a journalism fellow at Stanford University. She has managed newsrooms in Los Angeles and foreign cities, and she is a professor of journalism at San Jose State University. In 2016, 17, 18, she was talking about Calexit and trying to launch a national news for California to act like a nation. Chris Mitchell, April 2019. He's a lawyer, and he founded a Sacramento government relations advice firm. So he's in Sacramento, knows the law, works on government advice, talked about Calexit April 2019. James Poulos is a reporter for foreign policy. He too talked about Calexit February 2017. Marcos Kounalakis is a foreign affairs expert at the Hoover Institute and also a government reform expert at Stanford University. He's also studied international issues, and in 2016, he suggested California should look into Calexit. Abraham Lowenthal, 2009, is a professor at Long Beach State and USC. He teaches international relations, and he wrote the book Global California in 2009, which talked about how California loses on international trade. Stephen Greenhunt, April 2019, San Diego reporter, works for Cal Watchdog, a policy analyst group. Joe Garofoli is the San Francisco main newspaper senior political writer. He suggested Calexit in February 2019. Michael Boskin, October 2017, economics professor at Stanford University, Council of Economic Advisors, 89 to 1990. Kevin Johnson, Dean of the UC Davis School of Law, June 2015. He supported a Yes California idea to create a separate policy from the federal government. Michael Sertic is the president of the Advocates for Self-Government, a Sacramento policy firm. May 2019, he talked about Calexit. Cal Rostialia, January 2018, said he's for Calexit. He's a UCLA professor of international relations. Timothy Waters is a Californian. He's a professor of constitutional law at Indiana University, and he wrote a book called Boxing Pandora, where he said California has the right to vote to secede. Francis Buckley says specifically in his new book, USA Secession, that California should secede. He's a professor at George Mason University. Jonathan Taplin is the director of the communications department of USC, and he talked about how California should act independently from the federal government in December 2019. Willie Brown, possibly the most famous politician in all of California, ran the California government for years, knows everything there's to know about California government politics. He outright said in January 2017, California should, A, stop paying federal taxes, and then 2 months later said California could survive financially as an independent nation, live on television, January, February 2017. So 2010, Joe Matthews, the reporter, had a forum on if California could secede. He talked to David Dayen, a reporter, Joe Matthews himself, who covers California politics, Derry Sragow, a USC political science professor, and Peter Richardson, a San Francisco State California government professor. Additionally, R. Joseph Huddleston has spoken with me specifically about how California could achieve international recognition. He said it's possible. In March 2018, he teaches at Seton Hall University on foreign relations. Erwin Chemerinsky, April 2017, also said California could legally secede with a simple vote in Congress. He's the dean of the UCLA Law School and UC Irvine Law School and a constitutional scholar. Ryan Griffiths told me personally in 2019 that California could gain international recognition if it seceded. He's a political science professor at Syracuse. Gar Alperovitz is a professor of political economy at the University of Maryland. In February 2007, he said California could secede. Paul Starobin, May 2009, is an international affairs columnist. He said California could secede. Pat Morrison, in 2004, or 2014 said California could secede. She's one of the most famous writers in all of California. Richard Green, February 2012, a USC real estate land development professor, said California should break off from the U.S. economy. Chris Gray, a professor at Santa Barbara in sociology in October 2012, said California should leave America. Andy Cohen, a San Diego-based reporter in October 2013. There was also a report in March 2015 talking about how California acted like a nation, called A Vital Partnership, March 2015, How California Acts Like a Nation Already. That was by Orville Schell, the dean of the Berkeley School of Journalism, and Jeffrey Cohen, the chair of Communication School at USC. Both part of a study, Vital Partnership, 5 years ago, talking about how California acts like a nation. William Riggs is a professor at the University of San Francisco, July 2019. He talked about CalExit. He's an economist. Like a Nation in 2008 was a report talking about how California effectively acts as a nation. That's Like a Nation State 2008 by Bernadette Mailer, who is a professor at law in Stanford, and Douglas Kaisar, who's a law school professor at Yale. Additionally, Bernie Groffman, a professor of political science at UC Irvine in April 2019, looked into CalExit. Monica Toft Duffy in April 2019, a international affairs professor at Fletcher University. Bridget Coggins in May 2018 said California could survive on its own. She's an international relations and political science professor at a UC school here. Stephen Seidman, April 2019, is an international affairs professor at Carleton University. He also talked about CalExit. H.W. Brands, November 2018, is a professor of history at the University of Texas. James Goldsmith, 1993, wrote an article called California Foreign Policy. Stephen Hill is a political reporter and talked about having our own currency in 2011. David Freeman is a law school professor and political science professor and international relations professor at Stanford University. He talked about this in April 2018. Alison Holmes, who helped a British diplomat and also is a professor of international relations and has completed a study on how California could become a nation in August 2019. Joe Donnelly, an LA Weekly reporter, January 2003, I believe, talked about California independence. Daniel Hendel de la O, a San Jose University literature professor in March 2019, talked about this. Additionally, I've spoken with the public relations firms of David Gershwin in 2012. He's a close friend of Joe Matthews, and he knows all about CalExit. And Del Richards, a public relations expert out of Sacramento. Additionally, we have a few politicians. Jackie Speer in 2006 talked about California seceding. Willie Brown in 2018 talked about California seceding. Andrew Thompson, the mayor of Tiburon in 2017, reached out to Yes California to participate. Derek Seaver, San Jose's government. Derek Seaver, San Jose government, same thing, 2017, reached out to Yes California to participate. And Bob Pinsler of Redondo Beach, also a politician there, also reached out to us to participate. Additionally, Gray Davis, a former governor, in 2017 said California could become its own nation. Sebastian Ridley Thomas said the same thing in 2017. Evan Lowe in 2016 said California could secede. Attorney General Kamala Harris said that she understands the sentiment behind CalExit, never criticized it, and was also the person who approved the first initiative for secession in 2015-2016. So she knew about the Texas versus White case, knew about Yes California, knew about our initiative to secede, approved all of that, and also said she understood why CalExit was happening. Attorney General Javier Becerra also approved an initiative and also talked about Texas versus White. And finally, Assembly member Nora Campos proposed an embassy for California in 2018. Also, Gregory Carter for Isidore Hall followed us, meaning maybe Isidore Hall followed us. Mimi Walters' office also followed us. And Bill Berryhill's office also followed us. So those are all the politicians who know about Calexit, made a comment, or followed it along. You have a couple policy experts, Dan Walters, Steve Lopez, Thom Elias, Cenk Uygur. You have 2 public relations experts, David Gershwin, Del Richards. You have about 10 politicians at local levels up to the state levels, and you have about 30 professors. References will be provided. All of those people have talked about Calexit or reached out to their movement, and they would be good enough to form an exploratory committee to get the Blue Ribbon Panel up and off the ground. Thank you.